Okay, thank you everyone for joining us. Welcome to the first ever Children's Service Leaders Training Webinar by Tribe, which is the Youth Department of United Synagogue. I'm Sharon Nakar, I'm the Education Executive at Tribe, and I'm joined tonight by Michael Cohen.
Hi.
Who's sitting next to me. As you might have seen from our publicity, Michael has a lot of experience in education and specifically inclusive education, and as well as children's services. We really appreciate that Michael's joining us tonight because Michael's voice has gone somewhere. So he's really going to try his best to be able to give over this webinar. There'll be times tonight when the floor will be opened for your responses, and we really want this to be an interactive session. Just so you're aware, all of your microphones have been muted. The reason for that is to limit background noise, which can get a little bit distracting both for the presenter and for other attendees, but you will be able to contribute by typing in, and I'll explain to you how to do that in just a second. You need to know that it's only going to be Michael and myself who'll be able to see anything that you type in, but we will be reading out some of your responses and we'll be monitoring the text box all the way through the webinar tonight. If you want to remain completely anonymous, that's fine. There is a way to do that and I'll explain that as well. So for you to contribute by text, what you need to do is we're going to be using something called the Q&A feature. So on your screen, if you can work with me on this, you need to find the button that says Q&A. It might be that if you can't see it right now, that you need to move your mouse a little bit if you're on a computer, or move your finger a little bit if you're on a touchscreen device. I'll just give you a second to do that. Okay, and once you've done that, in the top right-hand corner, you should see a button that says Ask. If you press that or click on that, it should open a new window and allow you to type in something that will be sent to Michael and myself. And if you want to remain completely anonymous, then where it says anonymous, you need to make sure that that's green before you send it. Okay, you might have noticed that whilst you were doing that, if you were doing that, that myself and Michael disappeared. That's because that window took up the whole screen. In order to get us back on the screen, you need to find in the top left-hand corner where it says close. Okay, so Michael and I will be reading out as many responses as we possibly can in the time that we have. We're aiming to finish this webinar at 9:15 tonight, and I'm going to hand over to Michael.
Hi, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me all right. Is that how we move on? So, just putting on the next screen for you, hopefully you can see that. So our workshop objectives for this evening are to acquire strategies to help the leader and to look forward to welcoming every child in the service. And in this session, we will also explore our responsibility and gain practical ideas of how to make the service inclusive for everyone to enjoy. So, as a leader, waking up on a Shabbat morning, knowing that James or Jemima will potentially be at the children's service that you are leading can be very daunting. We base our judgments on previous experiences, and if these experiences were challenging or even unpleasant, it could set us into a failure cycle. We launch the service with dread and fear, and we feel physically drained from the outset in anticipation for the worst scenario, the impact being that all the children lose out and you have a stressful Shabbat experience. So today is aimed at helping you not only to meet the needs of James and Jemima, but also to gain practical ideas for making our children's services inclusive for all, so that you as a leader can actually enjoy your service. So if you invited me, we're going to start now thinking, if you invited me to your home for a Shabbat dinner, what would you want the outcome of that to be? For both you and I to have a good time, of course. But what constitutes a good time from my perspective, somebody who's coming to your home? Clearly, I would want there to be a good quality of conversation that I feel included in. That's the first point. I would also want to feel welcome in your home. So I'd want the temperature to be right. I'd want there to be ventilation. I'd want to feel relaxed. The final point, I'd want the food to be enjoyable, fresh, adequate, etc. And I could carry on. Now, let's explore the desired outcomes of the children's service. What would we want? How would we rate a successful children's service? What would we want from those children who are attending? So we're going to take some suggestions now. Sharon, do you want to remind everyone how to do this?
So using the Q&A feature, you need to find the button that says Q&A. This is also for anybody who's joined us since we've started. Hello and welcome. You need to find the Q&A button. You might need to move your mouse or your finger if it's not coming up. And then in the top right-hand corner, you need to find where it says Ask. Remember, it's only me and Michael that can see this. And if you want to remain anonymous, then you need to make sure the anonymous button is set to green. Okay, so somebody anonymously said you'd want them to feel that they want to come back again next week.
Absolutely. What else would we be looking for in terms of a successful children's service?
Miriam says you want them to feel welcome.
Absolutely. Any more thoughts? Don't be shy, don't hold back.
Oh, Lindsay says children to join in.
Thank you.
And somebody's saying engagement and focus.
Great.
And Miriam again is saying we hope there'd be decorum, especially from the parents.
Now, of course, that's making an assumption that you've got parents there. Not every children's service has parents. It depends on the structure, and some parents might be at the back. And obviously it's how you manage the parents too. So that would be interesting to look at, think about. Good. Okay, that's great.
Remember, if you want to see our faces again, you need to select close in the top left-hand corner.
Okay, so thank you all of you who participated. Obviously, you'd want there to be enjoyment. It's interesting because you'd also, if it's a children's service, you'd want there to be an element of learning something new, okay? Preferably, you'd want there to be some prayer, some tefillah taking place. You will be looking at the content. And I think one of you already said to come back next week. I think that was one of the responses we've already had. So clearly, there's going to be lots of objectives that we want from the children. Now, thank you. If I told you that I was a vegan with a couple of allergies, would you cater for me? Would you still invite me to be around your table? Well, of course you would, okay? Is it acceptable to say to some of our children that some of our children have got some catering requirements? So just like we've got catering requirements around the Shabbat table, we'd also have children with catering, with requirements that we would have to cater for. So putting that in our minds, if we go to the next slide, what's the difference between this analogy of the menu and ensuring that we have inclusiveness in the children's service? So I want you to think about the analogy of the menu, okay, and the inclusiveness in the children's service. There are some differences. So again, we invite you to come up with some suggestions, okay? So again, following the same process.
Yep, so that's using the Q&A feature again.
Doesn't matter if you're not sure, just to make suggestions, it's totally fine.
Okay, so we've got, like in the classroom setting, you need to engage the children. One thing will be to speak to one child and something else to another child.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that, Miriam. Can you think of anything else?
Lindsay saying not all the participants will know Hebrew. Stephen saying how much adaptation is reasonable.
It's a good question, Stephen. Again, that's what we're going to be looking at. We're going to be exploring that. Hopefully by the end of the session, you'll feel that that question has been answered.
Sarah saying not all the kids in my children's services, aged 0 to 4, are that age. So in those cases, when I have older children, I find I need to raise the level for those children.
Okay, so again, it's looking at getting that right balance, isn't it? So that you're trying to cater for as many people as possible. Absolutely. It's interesting because one of the thoughts I had was, in a meal, one person's plate isn't affected by another person's. In a service, you're juggling everyone's need, everyone's plate at the same time. And serving one person's needs can impact on the overall experience of the whole group. So that's quite a big one there. And of course, we have to take into consideration the total range. And we really want to make everybody feel welcome in that service. Now, in order to respond to give you some real practical suggestions, practical ideas, I've come up with a 6-point plan. A 6-point plan of how to really establish this this inclusion in your service, and how to get the best out of your service. And you know, these are general tips for leading a children's service anyway, but also will hopefully you'll respond to the needs of inclusion. So the first point is establish rapport. So in any relationship, this is a key to building trust and respect. You may need to do this outside the time of the service in circumstances. When you're more relaxed and not already coming out of your comfort zone, you might feel that it's easier to kind of make that link with some of your students. But when you're coming out of your comfort zone in a service setting, you might find that the more you've got to know the kids outside of the service, prior or another time, you might be able to feel more relaxed at your actual service. So on a practical level, again, your input, how could you go about this? How could you establish rapport with any of your children in the service outside of the service? Can anybody come up with some practical suggestions, practical ideas of how we can achieve this? So again,
Q&A feature. So Sarah says the thing she finds best is to try to remember as many of the children's names as possible.
absolutely, and that indeed is rapport. Absolutely, and even if you have, if you're not good at remembering names, and you've got quite a few children in your service, you could, make a little bit of fun that when you smile at somebody or do some, they give you their name, but clearly talking to somebody by name has a massive impact and makes them feel valued. Thank you for that.
Okay, Miriam says she would say Shabbat Shalom to them when she sees them in shul.
Absolutely. So that could be before the service. It could be after the service. Yeah, absolutely.
Sarah again says establishing a rapport is to look them in the eye when she says hello and to give them a big encouraging smile.
Absolutely. It's interesting because, many times, you see leaders of services that they've finished their children's service, but and they're in the kiddush and they've got kids who are in their service with them. They have to remember that there's still that role model for the kids, that you've just led a children's service, so potentially, pass them some crisps at the kiddush, because, they were in your service today and you're so happy that they were in your service today, and you remind them, I really enjoyed it. Here, take a crisp.
Somebody says praise them for nice davening or sitting nicely.
Absolutely. Now that's during the time of the service, and that's absolutely correct. At this point in time, we're trying to think about how we can establish a rapport outside the service, but actually part of their needs, and we're going to talk about this in number 4, responding to their needs. Part of their needs is to feel valued. Part of their need is that you are recognizing their goodness. They want to feel good about themselves. So when you catch them doing something really, really good and acknowledge it, wow, you've already gained brownie points.
Sharon says just generally talk to them. Say, so happy to see you again. How was your week? And remember something specific about them.
Yeah, I love that. It's so important. Many kids, they get attention by coming to your children's service. And from the moment they walk into the door, if you can make them feel special. How many adults turn to me and say, I was in shul and nobody spoke to me? Even as adults, we want to feel special. We want to feel that sense of belonging. And if somebody, even gives you a compliment in shul, when you walk into shul, you feel good about yourself. The kids are looking for that. They're craving, and they will link their whole shul experience to the fact that they felt they were able, they got a praise from somebody, they got valued, they got somebody looked and gave them a big smile. It's so, so important. This is never to be underestimated. So thank you for that.
And Sarah saying even something specific, she tries to mention something positive that they've done in the service to them or even their parent.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I can see Sharon's mentioned remembering something specific about them. Yeah, that's really, really important. You last week you said that when we were last week, you said that you were going to have something, your grandma was coming from overseas. How was it? Absolutely. Wow, she remembers that, said that to her. Absolutely.
And Rachel is continuing with that and saying she often sees them with their parents at Kiddush and tells the parents how well they've behaved during the service and make sure the kids are in earshot and bring the kids into the conversation.
Yeah, I've done that so many times, and the parents, wow, my daughter, my daughter could participate. Oh, thank you so much for telling me. They really, really value that, and the kids gleam. Absolutely. You might also find if you've got a particular a child that, you know, you might decide you want to kind of even invite them at some stage around your Shabbat table, if you feel that the family is a nice family and it's something, and you know, obviously there's no end to how much you want to go out of your way, especially when you've got a child that really is seeking that attention. The more you can praise them from, the more you catch them constantly doing the right thing. So even if they just walk in and they're sitting down like you would expect them to do, and they've all done that, you're straight away, you sat down beautifully, well done. So you're giving them the attention before they've craved it through the wrong way. So you want to try and find as many positive things to compliment them on. So actually they're getting the attention through positivity, as opposed to feeling that they have to disturb in order to get attention. So that's really important. So that rapport is the number one. Have we got any more coming in, or should we move on, Sharon?
Move on.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much for those suggestions, which are all great. So very much appreciated. So the first point we've spoken about, and that's establishing rapport. If you try and remember these points, it'll be really, really helpful for you. The second point is set values. Set a set of values for your service. So establish a culture of inclusiveness and respect for all in the service by talking about it openly. So in my children's service, everybody is important. You know, even stating the obvious, and they think, wow, she's really making me feel good. In my children's service, everybody has a good time. In my children's service, we give respect to everybody. That means we hear everybody. If anybody's not sure about something, feel free to give me a wave. Try and avoid putting the hand up. We want it to be slightly different to a school. You know, we want it really to be as informal but formal. There still has to be that structure. So often, interestingly enough, that there's the thought process that it's not school, it's not school, it's not school. So the kids don't require any parameters. That's not the case. Actually, kids feel far safer when there are clear values and parameters, so they know what the expectations for everyone are. You'll do it in a different way to school by giving me a wave and give me a smile, but ultimately you have to have clear sets of values. If not, then the service will literally fall, and you'll get those children who are louder, who they'll take over, and there'll be disruptions throughout. Remember, inclusiveness for everybody means that we want everyone to enjoy it and not feel threatened by behavior. So ask children to suggest areas in their life that they feel particularly strong in, and areas that they feel particularly weak and sometimes vulnerable. So get them to actually say, well, I think I'm very good at talking. I feel quite happy to talk. Great. So perhaps you can really try and find things that they play on their strengths. Okay. And you lead the way. Share with the children some of your own vulnerabilities. So I find it really difficult if there's a whole mess around the place. And so let's just put a few things, tidy up a little bit here, so that we can all feel valued, because that's really important for me, and it's okay, to say, I find it really difficult to raise my voice because I don't have a very strong voice. So I know you're all going to help me to really enjoy myself today. It's really going in there with that mindset. You're going to help me. We're all going to have a good time. So setting the values of your children's service, including behavior expectations together with the children, that everyone attends has a responsibility to support the service with. So it falls on everybody. So Jemima is following so beautifully. Jemima didn't shout out. She gave me a wave, and I really thank you so much, Jemima, because you're really working with me. And you might even want to display them on the wall before Shabbat. You might want to put something on the wall that displays what the values of the service are. there's different ways of going around it on Shabbat as well. Okay, so it's really important, establish the values. Don't be worried that you're making it too much like school when it comes to setting expectations. Better that you set them and you praise them every time they're responding to them. It's their way of getting attention and praise. So that's the next point, setting the values for your service. So the first point was establishing rapport. The second one is setting values. The third point, and that is collective ownership and responsibility. Children love responsibility. Give them a job. Believe me, there are enough jobs for everybody, from straightening the chairs to giving out the Siddurim, from taking out the Sefer Torah, the cuddly toys, from making people who are late for the service welcome, from putting out the kiddush. There are so many roles, for being your helper at certain times, for acting something out in the service. You know, give them a job. Children love to feel valued, okay? Ask them to help you to include everyone. Children will come up with their own suggestions about how they can support you, to support the likes of Jamie, the Jamies and Jemimas of this world. So, you know, we've got Jamie and Jemima coming today, and we really want them to feel welcome. What can we do as a team to support them? Because they find it a little bit difficult sometimes. Okay, so one of them has, well, I'll sit next to them and I'll point with this to the words. Oh, that's so kind of you. And then you make it clear to Jamie and Jemima that actually that you know, the other girl is doing this for them. You know, and we're all respecting one another. Okay, and let the children help you also with the setting of the values, with the behavior expectations. When we're all in this together, we all have that sense of ownership and responsibility for our service. It's the service that we all enjoy. It's the service that we all come to, and we really want to get a lot out of it. Okay, and at the end of the service, you could even review, what did we get out of the service today? You know, how was that collective ownership and responsibility? Did we do well on that? Okay. I'm just thinking that maybe it's a good idea, if anyone's got any questions at this point, if we give people an opportunity, because I've gone through 3 out of the 6 points. It might be that you've got some of your own suggestions of how you do this in your service. At the end of the day, you know, feel free to contribute your ideas too, because we're all learning from them, and hopefully I will be learning from you too. So I'm just going to give you a break to digest, and if anyone wants to share or ask any questions, hopefully I'll be able to respond to them. And feel free, now's the time. So again, it's over to you.
Q&A again.
There might be certain circumstances of your service that, you know, you might want to add a dimension that you do that we can learn from as well. Is that the one there?
This one.
Okay, so someone's asked here, what about when parents talk through the service? And I actually believe that's part of the setting of your values, that when you're setting the values at the beginning of your service, you actually include, almost like you're talking to the children, and you're saying, actually, mummies and daddies are also going to be very, very quiet. And it's interesting because someone mentioned to me, apparently there's somebody in, I think Bushy service, Bushy Children's Service, who is brilliant at this. I can't remember her name, or I would actually mention her. What she actually does is, she makes it clear to the parents that anybody who's talking has obviously got something to contribute to the service. So whenever any parents are talking, she stops and says, thank you, Mrs. So-and-so. What is it that you are contributing to the service? And they literally, it's done in jest, but and she's obviously doing this in a very respectful way. But ultimately, they know if they're seen talking, they're going to be called on to be part of the service and to contribute, or maybe to sing out loud or something, or, you can do this in tongue in cheek. At the end of the day, the parents are in there, part of that collective ownership and responsibility. You're doing it for their child, okay? So set the values for them too, make it very, very clear. Hopefully that's answered that one.
Can you write up your values and rules and display them?
Absolutely. What I would do is, one of your services, get them from the children, and then after Shabbat, write them down. Obviously, you can't write them down because of the Shabbat requirement, the Shabbat restrictions of writing. You can't literally write them down there as part of your service, but you can certainly come up with ideas from the children, and then after Shabbat do it, and then you've got that for next time. So you put them on the wall, you bring in, there's ways of putting it on the wall or putting a sheet of paper in the middle of the circle. Let's remind ourselves what we've all bought into. Absolutely.
So Miriam says, we in Henzin make chicken soup with the 0 to 4-year-olds. Sometimes bring props. The children love it, although it does mean being prepared.
Yeah, being prepared is the number one. Unfortunately, fail to prepare. I think I can't remember what it says. Fail to prepare, prepare to fail. Ultimately, you have to come ready. You have to come ready with too many activities up your sleeve for a children's service, so that you can pick and choose. Okay, if you haven't got enough up your sleeve, that's when you're fumbling, and that's when you you get stressed yourself because you've not got something to move on to, and you're feeling come with too much, and then you will feel far more relaxed for your service.
Okay. Sarah says, if I have a more difficult child in my service, or one who's a bit upset, I always ask them to sit next to me in the circle. This often makes them feel better straight away.
Lovely. Thank you for that. That's really good, Sarah. Thank you for that tip for us all. Absolutely. And sometimes there's a parent that can also, or a helper that you've got that can sit next to you. Absolutely. There's always somebody. That's great. Thank you very much for that suggestion. Okay, great. So thank you again for your comments, for your suggestions, and for your questions. Hopefully you feel that I've responded to them, and you've got some really concrete ideas to move forward. So we're going to move on to the fourth one. And the fourth of the 6 points is obviously respond to their needs. And I'm going to add as early as possible. Every child wants to feel noticed and special. They want you to know that they want to know that you care. You care about them personally. Children will become very negative, or at worst case disruptive, if they perceive that their need is not being met by the leader. Yeah, and actually when you can actually go and talk to them and say to them, I know that you feel far more comfortable when there's a young boy sitting next to you. Let's have, who would like to be, share with them how you are responding to their need. Don't just do it, but actually, really remind them how you're doing it. And I know that you like the window open. So that's the first thing I'm going to go, because it's so nice to see you. I'm so happy that you've come today and join us. Again, it's all about how you respond to their needs, and begin by examining the needs of the group holistically. So you might actually have a bit of a discussion. I'm here. I want to feel comfortable in this children's service, and I want to have a really good time. And I know you do as well. So perhaps if we go around the room and everyone shares one thing that would help them feel more comfortable, one thing that would make them feel more relaxed, and everyone's giving their suggestion, and everyone maybe says, are we all committed to doing this? Give a wave if you are. Brilliant. We're a team here. Yeah. And then you come up with some of your needs as a leader. My need is that when I'm talking, that everybody listens. So again, it's really about making everyone feel special. It's that ownership. and it was responding to everyone's needs. So you're finding out what their needs are is really, really important, because we are an inclusive service. And if children don't know what inclusive are, older children, tell them what an inclusive, what it means. And children will have various needs. Sometimes it's a physical need, which needs to be addressed also through risk assessments. You might have something that really requires some form of risk assessment. If it's a cognitive need or a Hebrew reading need, the response will be very different than a behavior need. Remember, needs left unaddressed can lead to children becoming negative and disruptive to the group. So, and you don't want that to happen. Okay, we will come back to this point shortly and explore ways of responding to the various types of needs by having some open discussion. The next point number 5. Sorry, yeah, that's great. So we've got established rapport, point number 1. Number 2, set values. Number 3, collective ownership and responsibility. Number 4 is respond to the needs. And now number 5, get the majority of the group on your side. Articulate to them why you are doing what you're doing. So I'm doing this now because I think it'll be really helpful for everybody to do this. Ask them for suggestions on how to improve the service. Keep reminding them how fair and reasonable you are to them. Keep, even though you're doing it, say, you know what, I'm really fair, because I want to walk away from this service today and know that I've really been fair to you all, because I really love you all, you know, in whatever way comes across best. Okay, if part of their need is behavioral and they need to reach and they need to receive more attention, give them the right attention. Throw it on thick when they are complying. I mentioned this earlier. Okay, catch them doing the right thing, praising them. The way that Jemima and Jamie need, the way that their needs are met, without them becoming disruptive. So you're thinking about what you can do specifically for them, while also having in your mind the needs of everyone else in your group. Okay, we've spoken again, this is about behavior, expectations. Okay, try to keep them positive, reward based. Okay, if you have to threaten something negative, if you really have to, obviously you're only doing this as a last resort. Okay, you must at all the time carry out your threat. Okay, so if you have to, but try always go through the positive route first. Try and reward them. Okay, there's different philosophies about rewards. So, you know, some children's services will give out sweets. Some values are that we don't over give them rubbish, because it gets them high and parents don't like it. Again, it's working carefully with whoever your leaders are in your synagogue. Okay, but if you do have to carry out something because it's really very, very difficult, you have to see it through. Okay, aim always to get parents on board. Work with them. Remind them that you are a volunteer trying to do your very best for their child. Okay, and that's really important. And if you need parents to physically attend, ask them. Say, you know, sometimes it's better when they don't, but if you think that will be helpful, ask them. Okay, sometimes the relationship of a child and their parent, it sometimes can be counterproductive to have them in the service, but you will know and you will find out, certainly by asking questions as well. Okay, so that is really the next point. Get the majority of the group on your side. Point number 6 is self-preservation. And this is, I put it at point number 6, but actually this is the most important. Prepare your mindset before you step into the room. Tell yourself that you're going to have an amazing time this morning with the whole group, but particularly with James and Jemima. You know, if we go in saying, I'm really going to enjoy myself, you know, often it's self-propelling. Okay, so today I came into this this webinar really worried about if I would actually be able to speak at all, because I've not been speaking all afternoon, and I literally, for like an hour before plumbing in, I can speak. I'm able, it's that I can enjoy the service. I'm going to have the best service I've ever had. And if you go into your service really believing that, it will come true. Okay. And that's the final point. So we've gone through 6 points. It is absolutely vital that you remember all these. I won't say that one's more important than the other, but actually the underlining, the foundation of a good service is self-preservation. Okay. Are there any questions from hearing all these points? Anyone got any further contributions or practical ideas? And remember, you can be confidential and not say anything. I just want to give you a moment or two in case there's anything burning out there before I carry on and close up the session.
Q&A again. I think maybe people might have some questions later on.
Okay, that's fine.
They can email to me.
That's fine. That's not a problem. So let's move forward. Okay. Yeah, there will be opportunities to ask questions later. I'm going to share that with you. Okay. So I want you to remember these 6 points. Establish rapport, set value. Just remember them. You've probably got them written down actually, because most of you have got something in front of you you're taking notes with. And now about to show you a slide with some pictures, and they're all jumbled up, and you've got to just see how you can remember link the picture to the point. Okay, so it's a little quiz just to remember the 6 points here. Okay, so if we have a look, there are 6 numbers and there are 6 pictures. So try and think which picture relates to which of the 6 points. Okay, so I give you a moment to think. Okay, so if anyone's got any suggestions, number 1, which one was that one? And if you want to just type it in, feel free to do so for picture number 1. Which one's that? It's either get the majority on your side, collective ownership, establish rapport, set the values, respond to their needs, or self-preservation. Any thoughts there? Anything coming in? Sure. Oh, I think
one person says rapport.
Yeah, absolutely right. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. That's great. Number 2. Number 2, on your buzzers, first person. The first person gets a special reward and an honourable mention. I'm so proud of them. We're going to children's service mode here. So the second one.
And someone says ownership, collective ownership.
Collective ownership, that is correct. Well done. Okay, and the next one, number 3. That's great. Get the majority on your side. That's well done. And number 4. Any offers on number 4?
Set the values.
Yeah, well, great. And number 5. What's number 5? You've only got 2 left. Can't be that difficult now. Number 5. Respond to their needs. Well done. Thank you. Thank you. It's an anonymous response there. And so what we're left with, number 6. Person in the box.
Self-preservation.
Thank you very much, Miriam. Great, lovely. Okay, as you're the last one, Miriam, we'll have to come up with some prize for you. Thank you. Okay, so if we can move on to the next slide. So thank you for that. I just thought we'd do something fun there. Okay, finally, just to finish off, and really, this takes us to Pesach. We've just celebrated a few weeks ago. It seems like ages ago. Pesach. And we have the 4 sons at the Seder, where we answered the needs to each of the 4 sons, okay? And our rabbis actually teaches, Chanoch al pi dako, teach according to their ways, and to, in other words, respond to everyone's needs. And as we do at the Seder table, hopefully this session has helped you to feel empowered to meet the needs and to enjoy seeing our dear children in our services engaged, developing their Jewish skills and identity. And if anyone feels that there is an area that I haven't addressed, or has a particular issue with their children's service, I will be very happy to have a personal session with them, because I am absolutely passionate that across all our children's services, we get it right. And you know, that's really an offer. And I've put my email address here. If anybody wants to email me directly, I'll be very happy to respond. Just finally, I'm trying to get to the next slide. Okay, so these were our initial objectives. Hopefully by looking at them, you feel that they have been achieved. And I've enjoyed leading this session, and I'm delighted that you've joined us. And I want to also thank the Tribe and the United Synagogue for this opportunity to help educate us all. And hopefully our children will get the benefit of this. And thank you as well for all that you do for your services in your individual communities.
So thank you, Michael. I'm just going to finish up by saying, first of all, thank you to Michael, and thank you for getting through it with your voice. And thank you to all of you for all the work that you do and for joining us tonight. I have some notes that Michael's given me on this webinar, so I'll be emailing them out to you tomorrow, or at least in the very near future, hopefully tomorrow, so that you can refer back to them. This webinar has also been recorded. So I am going to upload this, and I will send you the link when I have it ready. You'll be receiving an email tomorrow thanking you for joining us, with a link to a very short survey. Any feedback that we get from you is really helpful, so that we can continue to do things like this for you. My contact email is also in that, so anything to do with any sort of children's service stuff, feel free to email me. Just so that you're aware, we do have a Facebook group called Children's Services Tribe. Please join it if you haven't already. And we do have weekly children's service materials that go up on the Tribe website, www.tribeuk.com. As mentioned before, this is the first in our series of webinars. We have 2 more, and the next one coming up is on the 14th of May. So hopefully we will see you there. I'm going to end this session now, and have a good night. Thank you.